What's up, everybody, and welcome to week 87 of the Monday Night Wars. Brett Mix here for another edition of the Monday Night Wars. This time on the WCW side. Hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying the shows so far. Plus, you can check back on these reviews. I archive them, so whenever you want to watch the Monday Night War, it's not like you have to follow me doing the Monday Night War. It's whenever you guys want to watch the Monday Night Wars, you go back, open up these videos. I archive them there for you, and they're there for that purpose. This is the 91st episode of Nitro. The 87th week, they go head-to-head with the WWF. Nitro beats Raw for the 50th week in a row. This is week 50 for the wins for Nitro in a row, so it's a big one. They score 3.3 in the cable ratings. Raw scored a 2.4, so it's a win by 0.9 for Nitro, a big win. So through 87 weeks and 50 wins in a row, Nitro has 68 wins to WWF's 17 wins and 2 draws all-time in the Monday Night Wars. So this is the winning Nitro with a 3.3 rating. Shivani welcomes us to the show from a sold-out United Center in Chicago, Illinois, live June the 16th, 1997, only on TNT. And this is a big episode, and it starts right big off the bat with one of the greatest NWO entrants of all time. They say that on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, it says the greatest NWO entrance of all time, and it has this one. We open with a shot of a limo pulling up with the NWO music in the background. There's cigars for Nash. Savage jumps on the hood. Liz is with him. Hollywood and Rodman come out with cigars in their mouths. Scott Hall's there with a toothpick. My God. Bischoff's telling everyone he loves them, as always. Six is doing some shenanigans in the background as all of the NWO come from the limo, walk into the garage, and then they show them walking through the curtain to the front stage where the Chicago is just loving them. Hall says it's NWO country in Chicago, and they pop. This is the night after Great American Bash, which featured Savage Page 2 with that great Falls Count Anywhere match, which I believe Savage got his win back, but it was against DDP, and that was at the Great American Bash the night before. This is the Nitro right after it. The NWO go through the curtain. Hogan and Bischoff talk about Luger and the Giant and how they're not going to wait till Bash at the beach. They talk about how the Bulls won a title, so Rodman's a world champion just as much as Hollywood is. Luger and the Giant, wherever you want to get it on tonight. They call them out, and now instead of NWO's music hits, they go back there with shenanigans. They said they don't want to wait till Bash at the Beach. Killer opening segment from the NWO entrance alone. But great stuff to start the show. The opening match was Glacier versus Mortis. They showed Wrath and Mortis with a plan of destruction to Glacier with handcuffs the night before the Great American Bash. They started on the outside, Mortis getting a high martial arts kick, and then he fell growing first onto the steel steps that Mortis originally laid out to put destruction to Glacier, but Glacier caught Mortis and dropped him growing first onto the steel steps as the crowd ooh and ah. Mortis drives Glacier face first to the mat, and Wrath watched him on the outside. Glacier got the win at 2:15, rated at 3/4 of a star. After the match, they took it to Glacier like they did the night before at the Great American Bash. Ernest the Cat Miller comes out, and he was the one at Slamboree to save Glacier from these two, Wrath and Mortis. And he saved Glacier at Slamboree, and he saves them tonight with a big spin kick. Ernest the Cat Miller. Security led by Doug Dillinger makes sure Ernest Miller is looked at, as he wasn't on the roster, I believe, so they had to do that. Mean Gene has a promo with Medusa, who lost her career at the Great American Bash the night before. Medusa says she's a lady of her word and thanks everybody, and Gene calls it a touching moment as she was all emotional. They show last week how Malenko lost the U.S. title to Jeff Jarrett due to Eddie Guerrero's frog splash, a returning Eddie Guerrero who had the arm sling and then dropped the arm sling on Malenko after it was done. Malenko versus Chavo Guerrero was the next match. Chavo Guerrero's first Nitro match maybe ever, or at least in months. We haven't seen him in a long time. Malenko actually grabs a mic and says, if you have the guts, come out here tonight and face me, Eddie. But instead of Eddie Guerrero, we get Chavo Guerrero Jr. They call him Junior here because obviously Chavo's Senior. Malenko worked on the knee of Chavo Jr., and then he softened him up for the cloverleaf, and he hit the cloverleaf. Eddie then walks towards Malenko at the stage area, but I rate the match a 1.5 stars as it wasn't long enough to get super in-depth. Super Callow took on La Parka, so there's a lot of good Cruiserweight matches on the night. This is why I rated this match 2 stars. Callow has that suicide plancha through the ropes, and he lands onto the crowd in the second row. It's crazy how much elevation he gets from the suicide dive / corkscrew moonsault plancha to the outside. La Parka threw a chair in the ring to Callow after the match. Next up, Mean Gene introduces Luger the Giant. Luger talks about the NWO being so cool and says Hollywood wasn't so cool last week when he had him tapping out the torture rack, and the crowd cheer. Giant says Rodman and Hogan. He says Rodman, Hogan. He says he got the choke slam on them and he'll do it again. Luger and Giant accept the challenge for tonight with Rodman and Hogan. So a huge match for Nitro. Hollywood Hogan not only on Nitro in a match again for the second straight week, but this time with Dennis Rodman. Harlem Heat take on the amazing French Canadians. A big thrust kick, and the number one contenders win this one. Harlem Heat, star and a quarter. J.J. Dillon talks about the outsiders wanting to handpick their opponents. Vincent comes out in Harlem Heat as well, and they argue about who's the number one contender and why. Six then defends the Cruiserweight title against Rey Mysterio Jr. These two met a couple weeks ago for the title, but this time a rematch. The beginning of the second hour's pyros go off. Six choked out Rey in the middle rope, and then a press slam. Six does the suck it crotch chop before Flair. My notes said Flair. Six does this the suck it crotch chop before the DX ever did it, and I think it was a click thing. You saw Hall and Nash sometimes do it as well. Rey with a 619 attempt and a somersault plancha over the ring post down to the floor. Outsiders surround Rey and he fights back. Six retains the title as he puts on the Buzz Killer after outsiders interfered and distracted Rey at 4:55 and gave the match 2 stars. Nash jackknifed Rey after the match. The Wolfpack grabbed the mic. Survival of the fittest, said Nash. Hall said the Wolfpack beat Flair and Piper. Hall says a real treat for everyone. The Macho Man Randy Savage. They introduced Savage and he talks about Chicago being NWO territory. He says that DDP couldn't handle the madness last night and Macho was on top of his game. DDP then gets the mic and says everyone knows who his partner is at the Bash at the Beach, and the fans chanted Sting. And he says, if you got the guts, Savage and Hall, you can take on me and my partner, which he alludes to being Sting, but the crowd chant for that, and that's what you would ultimately think. Ultimo Dragon took on Chris Jericho. This one has the potential for sure. Definitely another good cruiserweight match on the night. It's once again, it didn't go long enough for the to be the good substance of these cruiserweight matches, ratings wise, star ratings wise, but they're still good treats to watch. Jericho off the ropes, a leap behind. Jericho with a leg drop after a shoulder block, a standing suplex. Jericho with a drop kick, then a kick over to the ropes to the floor. Ultimo Dragon down on the floor, then on the apron, suplexed him into the ring with a lariat and a near fall. Dragon dropped down from the top with a slam, and then an inside cradle into a Hurricane Rana. A power bomb or two, then a go behind suplex. A full Nelson is reversed, and the Dragon gets him at 4:39 after a nice suplex. I rated it 2 stars and a quarter. Again, the time, if they had more time, it would have been better. Mean Gene Okerlund introduces Roddy Piper, who says Flair and him had a misunderstanding last night, and that's all it is Ric Flair comes out and says, Mean Gene! And he agrees it's just a misunderstanding. Him and Piper are best of friends. Vicious and Delicious, Bagwell and Norton, who are in the NWO, take on Dean Malenko and Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett struts around with some offense. I believe it was Mongo and Jarrett, not Malenko and Jarrett. I put Malenko. That must have been a mistake. At 7 minutes, the NWO are the winners after Mongo and Deborah turn their back on Jarrett. And Mongo slammed Jarrett to the mat. So I don't know if that's a breakup of the Horsemen or at least Jeff Jarrett's part. The main event is here. Hogan and Rodman versus Luger and the Giant. An explosive tag team main event here. Hollywood came out with Rod the Bod. Rodman says, let's get out of here because Luger and the Giant didn't show up after a commercial break, but they did then show up. They all wrestle in the ring until the NWO comes out and beats on them, so I didn't give this match a rating. That does it for the wrestling portion of Nitro. The show ended with the NWO celebrating together with a big huddle after they beat down Luger and the Giant in the ring. They get the spray paint for old time's sake. The NWO all hug as the show goes off the air. I'm sure the fans were expecting Sting to come out in grand fashion because this is in Chicago, Illinois. And the last time they were in Chicago on a Nitro, I believe Sting dropped down from the top. You can find that clip on YouTube. That's a classic clip of Sting and the NWO. But no Sting this week. We get just the NWO as the cameras go off the air. And, and that's good because you gotta preserve these Sting. If you're going to have Sting come in all the time, you got to preserve it. And I think they did a good job this week at doing that. Quality-wise, I gave Nitro last week an 8 out of 10, which is unusual. I don't usually go up that high in score points, but I did it for last week's Nitro. This week, there's a great star power, but I give it a 7 out of 10, which isn't bad. Featured some good, still above average. Featured good matches, and they had a lot of star power outside of Sting. Sting's really the only guy that didn't show up, but again, that's a good thing sometimes. You can't have Sting showing up every week. It'll lose its flavor. So this week again, 87 of the Monday Night Wars. Nitro wins 3.3 to 2.4. Their 50th week in a row of victory in the Monday Night War. So that's Nitro. I'm Brett Mix. Hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the future Nitro reviews. I'm out.